sure.
Oh, I don't have a freaking camera. That's why.
What?
Yes, it's recording.
Okay.
So,
Matt, you start.
Welcome to BattleBots, the Tale of Tape After Show.
that was great.
Yeah,
we're gonna cut
really
that. We're totally gonna cut that in later.
Welcome back to Tail the Tape, the Despacito special.
Desperado?
Despacito.
Despacito. Can you explain what the Despacito is to the viewers?
You explain it. I don't understand.
All right, so I'll explain it because we actually considered entering the Despacito tournament. So this was a last chance tournament where they were going to pick 8 robots from all the robots that applied to be in this tournament, and you had to fight 3 times in one day. So a lot of people don't know that it actually all happened in one day. So when you see the camera on Donald Hudson because he's working, it's because if he missed those 5 minutes, he wouldn't be ready for the fight. So you go through these 3 fights in one day, and whoever wins the tournament of these 8 robots basically gets a for sure spot in the tournament.
Yeah, it was a brutal day. It was 3 fights, 3 brutal fights. You guys considered it. We considered it. A lot of robots considered it. And actually, there was a question from Melvin Chang on Instagram saying, why didn't Bombshell or Chomp get into the Desperado tournament? They were both 0-3 and Virgin 0-4. Bombshell had a fight with Yeti scheduled that same session, which is one reason. Because we're all filming a whole bunch of stuff at the same time. The Despacito was not the only thing happening that day. So Bombshell already had a plan. And Chomp was trying to figure out what they were doing because they got there late. They were
hustling. They had a lot of fights.
Yeah.
They were making changes and stuff. So,
and I think I could be wrong, but I don't know if they even had 3 fights until after the Despacito. Like I think their 3rd fight was that morning session.
Maybe.
So
it's possible.
I think the simple answer is the schedule, and because people didn't all necessarily know that they were 0-3 until basically when the Despacito was being filmed, and people had busy schedules already.
Right. In addition to that, this whole season's been basically a battle of attrition. So you got a lot of people have already fought 3 or 4 times at the time of the Desperado tournament. Plus, if they won that'd be 3 more. So part of our decision was, if let's say we happen to win the Desperado tournament, would we still have to fight our remaining fights in the ranking fights? And the answer was yeah. Production said yes, you still have to fight your remaining fights. So
that's 7 fights before doing the last 4 fights that you would need to get all the way to the finals.
Right. So that's a whole lot of fighting.
Yeah.
And not many people had enough spares for that.
Correct. And we were struggling with reliability ourselves. So we were, even if we won the Desperado, we were kind of figuring the robot would be on its last leg and we'd be out of spare parts. Going into the top 16 would not have been a good setup. So I think a lot of people had the same thoughts. There were a lot of people that registered for the Desperado tournament.
But they only chose teams that they knew had functioning robots and that they could repair quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So especially, at least for us, we were having issues and we didn't even bother submitting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing they were concerned about would be that a robot wins one of the matches and gets to move on in the Desperado, but can't physically fix a robot and then would just have to forfeit a match. They absolutely didn't want that to happen.
Right. That's the worst case from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
So another fan question from Daichi Nanin777 on Instagram says, even if you didn't win the Desperado tournament...
Despacito.
I'm sorry. Despacito tournament.
Desperado.
Do you still have a chance of making it into the top 16? And the answer is probably not.
Yes, but no.
Yes, but no. So your wins and losses in the Desperado tournament do count towards your overall rank. So people like Lucky who didn't win it, but they still had a few wins. Their overall rank winds up being they're 3-2 or whatever at the end of the Desperado tournament. So it does boost your overall rank because you've had more fights. Not saying you can or can't get in the top 16, and it might help your chances, but it doesn't eliminate you altogether.
Yeah. You're not doing it just for kicks. You're doing it because you're desperate or despacit, whatever.
Or Desperado.
No. If you're a despacito,
Desperate.
then you do the Despacito.
Okay.
All right, well, let's jump right into the first match. So we have a special guest today who is Matt from Kraken.
Matt? Thanks for having me.
Hi, Matt.
Hey!
All right, so first fight, Lockjaw and Kraken. Really great fight.
So why don't we just start at the beginning? How did you feel about fighting Lockjaw?
We were pretty excited. A little bit nervous because Donald's very experienced, but excited because we felt we had a good chance. He has a lot of areas that we thought we could get the lower jaw up under him. He didn't have any low wedges or anything. His front wedges on the forks weren't long enough. The day we get under us, we'd be able to scoop him up. And he was a nice bite size, so we were feeling. I was feeling confident. I'm not sure everyone on our team was feeling confident, but I was feeling confident.
Yeah, his robot's a tasty little morsel that fits right inside your robot
perfect.
neatly.
He went in perfectly.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys were struggling with some reliability issues in your previous fights. So, did you feel confident going into the Desperado that you had all those issues resolved?
Well, before every match we were confident that we had all the issues resolved, and then we got bit. So for this match, we were actually running two different chassis. So kind of like a NASCAR style, we were having problems with the first chassis, so we put it on the trailer and we brought out the backup chassis. So for this match, we're actually fighting a brand new Kraken. So we didn't have any of the issues. The things that we learned in our first two matches, we fixed those things, and then we were going into this third one. We're like, well, we fixed everything that we could possibly fix, and we were feeling there wasn't anything left for us to try and fix. So it was we were pretty confident, but we didn't know what gremlins were going to get us.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I definitely think that you did a great job driving. You were really aggressive staying on Lockjaw.
Dude, you had him.
You had him so many
You had him
times.
so much. Oh my god. You were so close.
It reminds me so much of our match in season 1 with Tombstone, because it's like you won until you didn't.
Yeah.
Right. We had him on the ropes, and then we just let him off at that end. And but it was still reliability. We ended up having a motor that just torched in the middle of the match.
Yeah,
And,
that was actually going to be my next question.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, it definitely looked like you lost some mobility at the end there, so I kind of suspected it was motor or speed controller related since gremlins bite you.
Yep, and this was a direct effect of the short build schedule. There was a shortage of motors, and they didn't have any of the motors that we wanted to run, and they were sold out. Everywhere we called, they were sold out. So we ended up having to buy used motors. We burned up one of them passing safety, so NPC was able to overnight us one, the one that they had in stock, and the one used one that we still had ended up going up in that match. So a bit unfortunate, but that's the way it goes.
So did you make any special modifications to Kraken for this fight? I noticed you had a wheelie bar on the back.
Yeah, we had the wheelie bar on the back. So we could run two different gearbox configurations. We could run 14-to-1s or 20-to-1s. And we found when we ran the 14-to-1 gearboxes, we were faster, but we actually could go fast enough. We could wheelie all the way over, and it would flip onto its head. So we added the wheelie bar on it so that we could go full speed and not roll over. But then for this match, we went with 20-to-1s, so we had the pushing power.
Right.
We were worried he had four-wheel drive, and he had huge tires. We were worried the traction thing, if we give him the edge, we were trying to get a little more pushing power.
Yeah, you were able to dominate when you guys locked up. You were able to at least not let him pull you around, but obviously two-wheel drivers, four-wheel drivers, definitely disadvantage.
Yeah, and we were trying to get him into the screw. I was really trying to get him to go into the dang hammers because my kids were running the hammers. I really wanted them to smash him with the hammers. He would not cooperate at all. He was really, not helpful at all trying to get him to the hammers.
Yeah,
That jerk.
damn seasoned veteran.
Speaking of your kids, obviously your team is a family affair, right? Everybody's part of your family, which is great. And I think you have one coworker in there. Tell me a little bit about those costumes. They look pretty awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, my wife actually made all of the costumes herself. They were stuff that either the fabric that she picked up from days and days sewing stuff together. She didn't know how to sew before she started, but she learned pretty quick.
Wow, really? That's amazing.
Jeez, seriously? Come on, man.
She should teach a home economics class.
Yeah.
She teaches herself. If she wants to learn something, she really needs to learn it. Then she just does it. That's what she does.
That's awesome.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, actually, and the way the bag is actually the airbag that actuates the jaw is held in with a bag that she sewed out of some heavy canvas.
Wow.
So we needed a way to retain the bag, and she came up with a solution and put it together and everything right there.
Might be the only robot with sewing skills required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have one fan question from you from John Flack on Facebook. Do you think Kraken would beat Lockjaw in a judge's decision if the match continued the way it was going before you got flipped over?
I'm gonna say yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. We were winning the control for sure. I felt we were the more aggressive, and we were able to execute our strategy. So those three categories, we would have taken it. And then neither one of us, up until that point, had really done any damage. Now we had some little nicks on the front of the front wedge, but I think if we could have held it together to get to a judge's decision, I think we might have taken it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely think, like you said, there was Lockjaw might have got one minor hit on you before that, but you guys were definitely winning all the other categories up until that point. So
I was surprised how well you were doing against Donald, because Donald's Donald. Like, Matt, I love you, and you know I do. And it's not a diss against you. I was surprised that despite all the problems you were having, that you were controlling the match. I was taken aback.
Yeah, when the robot works, it works really, really well. The problem is it just doesn't work all the time.
Yeah, I know that's like.
Yeah, we know that feeling.
all right, well, I think that's
Yep.
sums up this one.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thanks for calling. Definitely think your team has what it takes to be this is what BattleBots wants. Good theme, great team, cool looking robot, awesome looking robot. Not even cool, way cooler than cool.
I love the angler up front. That's awesome.
Good interviews.
Thanks, guys. You have to wait and see what we have in store for next season. So we got some big surprises for next season. We're excited.
How about
Little teaser there.
self-riding mechanism?
Oh, come on now. Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, we're not doing that. It'll be
Oh, okay. Don't waste any weight with that. That's
Yeah.
dumb.
You never get flipped over.
Right. How often is that going to happen?
Rarely. All right, Matt. Thanks a lot.
Guys, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Have
no
a great
problem.
night.
Cool.
All right, so
You go.
Valkyrie versus Hypothermia.
Ooh, Valkyrie's starting to work.
Valkyrie is
Great.
starting to work
Yeah.
until it didn't work.
Well,
But it worked before it didn't
But
work.
when
listen.
it works so good.
I know, it's so cool. I mean, okay, so it's based off of a robot that one of their team members built.
Mhm.
That's a little
tiny one.
Yeah, foiled. I think we have a photo of it. But it's super tiny. It actually has printed on airfoils on the weapon, so it sucks the disc down on the ground.
Yeah.
Gives
Yeah,
it
it's
extra
really
little bit downforce, and then pivots around it. I think it's a great execution of making that robot bigger.
Mhm.
Well,
He's done a few different. He's done a 1 pound, a 3 pound,
and a 30.
and a 30.
Yeah.
So a few different iterations, kind of leading up to the massive one. And this, I gotta say, the weapon on this thing is super scary.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
it's
a-
quiet. It's eerily quiet.
Yeah, it's a 80 pound something, 70, 80 pound spinning ridiculous disc that's
Yeah.
massive. I mean, at one point, I think it was during this session, they had one of the extra discs laying up
sitting
against the table or the wall where we were standing, and
It's huge.
I was like, "Oh, hey, you guys forgot your disc," and I went to pick the thing up, and I'm like, "Oh!" throughout my back because I didn't realize. I mean,
It's
it's
heavy.
super heavy.
It's really big.
Yeah. So that explains why it hits super hard, and does pretty extensive damages. But it also takes a lot of energy and motor and battery to keep that thing going.
Yeah, and one of the design compromises here is this problem. So you see how close the blade is to that motor pulley and the motor shaft, and the little axle or bolt that's on the bottom there. It's what I think it's 10 millimeters.
Yeah.
It's a centimeter.
Oh, they work in metric, so yeah, it's like it's just about a half
God.
inch, less than half an inch.
Less than a half inch, and there's not much. And you think those things are rigid, and all of us kind of tend to think that our robots are fairly rigid. But when you look at high speed and just in practice, they flex a lot.
Super flexible.
They
Just
defy
looking at,
physics, it's crazy.
I went back and looked at some of the high speed footage of Hypershock when it got hit by force, and the whole frame's like flexing around like what? So the problem that they had is that axle was so close that it started shearing the bolt, like machining little bits of it off until it just came off.
And then the sprocket comes off, and
Yeah.
then the chain comes off, and it's just
And you're kind
bad
of done.
things.
And then your weapon doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when your mobility system for your weapon, that's your robot, you're kind of hosed.
Mm-hmm. And in an undercutter style like that, you don't really intend on ever needing to push anybody around, so
No.
you make sacrifices on drive. You probably
You
don't
don't
have super powerful drive, just enough to get that massive weapon pushed around the arena.
And that's all it should be, really.
Well, the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is the weight distribution's against you.
Yes.
Because
So
most
I have
of the
a-
weight's on that front axle.
I have a 3-pound undercutter. I don't want to say it's like Valkyrie, but it's like Valkyrie in proportion that it's a 1.3 pound weapon on a 3-pound robot, and it drives absolutely terribly. If the weapon's not spinning, it's not driving. The wheels are just spinning. It's not going anywhere.
Because
so-
all the hit.
It can hit really hard
Yeah.
when it works 10% of the time, and 100% of the time it works 10% of the time.
Getting that formula right is tricky.
It is.
It's
Well, let's
just
take a
really
look
hard.
here at all the damage that they actually were able to do to Hypothermia.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
Hypothermia did a great job of holding up to the hits and kind of keep at them, but I mean the damage
Right.
was
Well, I mean,
significant.
it's a wedge. It's a
Yeah.
big,
It's a big
beefy,
steel wedge.
heavy-duty wedge.
And even then, it still split their wedge
Several places.
places. And who knows what other damage is inside of Hypothermia, but
Well, yeah.
Kenny said the back was falling off. But
I mean, the arms aren't exactly in perfect shape either.
No. I don't even know if they were functional. Ever.
Well, come on now. No, it was brutal.
It was. So, unfortunately, Valkyrie lost her weapon, wasn't able to move on.
But won a close judge's decision.
Yeah. I mean, move on in the arena, not in the tournament.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I think it was good.
Yeah, because at the end, Hypothermia was so damaged, they couldn't really move either, so it was just kind of two handicapped robots moving around. So,
Brutal.
Hypothermia won that. Just kidding.
And
Edit that out.
Valkyrie's really, at least that I can remember, the first real undercutter in BattleBots, right?
In the modern season?
Yeah, right,
Well,
in the reboot.
yeah,
Rotator.
rotator.
Well, the
Rotator's
Rotator has
half.
something else going
Yeah.
on, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's a
mean-
unique thing, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right, though.
Like we talked about Rotator last season being like, Victor wanted to do something cool and have 2 discs because he had a middleweight Blue Flame, which
Great
was
robot.
a great undercutter, like
I want
super
someone-
scary.
Yeah.
And Victor's talked about maybe the dual disc thing is maybe he's giving up other potential.
I don't know, it seems to work.
It works
Yeah.
great when it works. It's the same thing. Now he's got it dialed in, so we're getting off topic here, but he's got that thing dialed in. But I mean, you could imagine if Rotator had a 40-pound heavier weapon, it would be like redonkulous.
And like
It
Valkyrie.
would be like hitting super insane.
Kind of
hard.
like Surgeon General back in the day.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
anybody knows what that is.
Well, someone will.
Somebody does.
Mark Elam
Mark
knows.
Elam knows. So yeah, so hats off to Valkyrie on that, and we'll see how they do in the next round.
Lucky Gemini. That was a Science Channel special.
Science Channel bonus fight.
Launching little robots
Yes.
across the arena.
This was
it
so
was
much
so
fun
good.
to watch.
Yeah, we just watched it actually right before.
This is exactly what you hope that match is going to be when you see them going, like they're going to go up against each other, and then it was exactly that.
You know what I
Yeah.
really like about the current iteration of Lucky is they didn't even bother having like a little scoop on the
Yeah,
the
it's just like
flipper.
a
it just
punch-
punches
it's
stuff.
a punching
It's
arm.
awesome.
And-
It's so good.
And when when I saw Lucky season 1 or whatever it was, season
Season
2,
Season 2, yeah.
I was like, that's interesting kind of like geometry for the arm, that it doesn't flip up like Bronco, but it more of like a forward punch. And man, it works really well.
Great.
It works really well because you don't really need the height. You have the same force going
I mean, it's
forward.
cool.
It's cool, but Yeah, but
Bronco's
you can
12
launch
feet.
someone 15 feet across the arena too. That
Also,
also is cool. And
Tricky.
you know, Curtis did an amazing job driving this match. I mean, everybody wants to fight a multi-bot because you're fighting something half your weight.
Yeah.
So it's
great.
like, hey, I get to pound on a, you know all about quarter pounders of cheese, right?
Yep,
Beating up on the little guy.
Yep, shorter pounder.
So, yeah, I mean, Curtis drove his ass off. You know, you have two things to fight. So, and two things.
It's not
with,
a cakewalk.
Yeah, and two robots with fairly dangerous weapons.
Yeah, I mean, Mohawk got some serious damage out of their rumble.
Yeah.
There's some serious legit weapons.
Mm-hmm. So Lucky was able to, I guess, you know, they basically broke through all the throws. Like, you know, there was the first few throws, I think the robots were like hitting the floor with their weapon. You know, that takes a toll on robots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, attrition is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Gigabyte double dutch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this thing's so cool.
Double Dutch.
Yeah, it is. Like,
It
did
is
you
cool.
actually see it?
I did.
At the
It's
event?
beautiful.
So nice.
It was super nice. If you could only keep those bars on.
Well, yeah, that was the problem.
Did you see them duck when that thing came
Yeah.
towards them? That was awesome. It's like you know you're safe, but it's still not right.
No, you don't. Yeah, I talked to him, Double Dutch. It was it was a really well built thing. It was first robot, but the problem was every robot has an Achilles heel, especially first go around. And what ended up happening was the bars just kept coming off, and he had like a nut mechanism to hold them on, and it would never stay on. So he ended up like welding them in place, so you could not take them off, but they still came off.
Wow.
So
So we got a video of it spinning up, driving.
Yeah, this is in the test box.
yeah.
Oh wow. I didn't actually get to look at the inside of the robot,
It was
but
pretty.
I mean, I saw them testing their weapon at one point, and it's scary. It was
Yeah.
scary.
If they could keep the bars on, it'd be really interesting.
Yeah. What was
I mean that in earnest.
What was the one last season that had the bars that kept flying off?
Chromefly.
Chromefly, yeah.
Yeah.
It had the Chromefly effect.
It had the
Super scary
Chromefly
weapon.
rapid destruction effect.
Yeah, super
heat
scary
destruction.
weapon, but just didn't have the wherewithal to keep the weapons on the robot. I don't
Yeah.
know. Was it direct mounted on the
No, it was a
belt drive?
it was a
thing.
belt or
Hmm.
chain or something.
Okay. And then Gigabyte. I mean, Gigabyte
It's Gigabyte.
is Gigabyte. Need
Now with
to say no
shell
more.
on.
Now
a
with
little bit
shell
more
on.
permanently.
Interestingly, though, in the last fight, something happened with their self-righting shaft.
It just
Right.
busted off.
Busted off.
Yeah.
So I think they replaced it. I know, was that this fight?
Yeah, in this match,
Yeah,
their
that's
self-righting tube is actually a bent tube instead of a welded tube.
Mm-hmm.
But they still have a part on the end that's came off, which seems like that was either bolted on or welded on or something. But the whole thing didn't break the
Break.
way that that
Yeah.
it does later.
Foreshadowing. All right.
It's in the same episode. We can talk about it.
John wasn't driving this though.
John was this time.
John was there.
Was he?
I don't know if he
Yeah.
was driving.
Well, he was. I don't know if he was driving, but he was back.
He was
for
Was he
this
back
intro.
by then?
Yeah, he was there.
It was so this schedule
So John had
So
actually gone to China, and he was having somebody else fill in for him.
with Megabyte.
So you actually see him in the intro for this match, actually standing in the middle, making a cute little heart
Yes,
shape,
yeah.
because he learned that in China.
Yeah, you can see on Megabyte they have all these hearts on the top now.
Yeah. Because it's got to fit the Chinese, everybody's happy and emojis and whatnot in
Yeah.
China.
So some people have asked us if Megabyte and Gigabyte are actually physically the same robot, and this proves that they're not. There's actually two robots that are very similar, but
Yeah.
They are actually two different robots that were actually competing at the same time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Halfway across the world.
Yeah, there's a couple of robots like that too.
Yeah.
Shredderator.
I mean, well, yeah, Shredderator. There's two different of it. Warhawk. There's basically two.
Oh, I didn't know
Everyone always says Tombstone, and Last Rights. They're two
Yeah,
different
that's
robots, similar but different robots. It's common.
Mm-hmm.
that. All right, so let's go into the semifinals here. We have Lockjaw versus Valkyrie.
All right.
So this fight was tough for Valkyrie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, anybody fighting Lockjaw, it's a tough fight.
Yeah.
So-
But the Spirit of Boston
Yeah. So
May it rest in peace.
So-
sis.
yeah. So I don't know what motivated them to switch their weapons. So Valkyrie has 3 different weapons that they can choose: two discs and a bar, as you see there. They opted for the bar against Lockjaw. My guess is spin up time.
Well, I think because when you have a disc, a vertical spinner can hit any point of the disc, but when
Yeah.
you have a bar, it only comes around twice, so it's a little bit harder for
Yeah.
Lockjaw to hit it.
Right, but
It's the same thing that Rotator did with you guys.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
yeah, but knowing Donald always has that plow backup that he slaps on.
Yeah.
Like he literally made that at the event, and it looked like it was
It works.
made ahead of time, but he literally made it at the event and in anticipation of fighting a robot like this. And yeah, and it did exactly what he wanted it to do, which is break the spinner.
I generally don't like when robots use their butt instead of the front just to be defensive, but you gotta do what you gotta do. This is a tough fight, and he can't take a bunch of damage and fix it to turn
Right.
around for the next fight. So
The
I understand the
Despacito effect.
decision, but
Well, it's a gamble too because it's not his primary weapon,
yeah.
and you only get damage points if you use your primary weapon. So he'd have to basically break them and then use his primary weapon
Right.
to finish it off, finish
Right.
off the job. So definitely a risk doing that with the new judging criteria. But
Yeah, but if you're confident and like you said, the strategy is make sure you survive.
Yeah.
And if you go in head first and blow yourself apart, but you win, it's not total slam dunk.
Right. So as you guys saw, their bar Spirit of Boston broke after a few
Broke their
huge
spirit.
after a few broken spirit. That was funny. After a few huge hits, yeah. Bravo, golf claps. After a few huge hits against Lockjaw, so Valkyrie had a breakdown on their Facebook page, basically explained why it broke, and it. You can.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing here is that the bar was actually one solid bar. So you wouldn't expect that to break that way. But when they welded those rings around it, and they did that for the same reason that we talked about before, because it'll deflect into the robot, so they're try to avoid that.
To prevent that first failure mode from the hypothermia fight.
But that weld just weakened it enough right there that it just started a stress fracture all the way across.
Mhm.
So I mean, I was surprised to see that. I'm sure they were
Oh, yeah.
more shocked than anybody.
Yes.
Yeah, the bar was probably fine as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like Tombstone's bar.
Well, I would like water jetted a plate, like a thin plate, just put it on top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Integrated into the bar, but I'm sure,
Season
I'm
four.
sure they learned their
Season
lesson.
4.
Yeah.
But we have to give props to Fred for keeping at it even with
Oh yeah.
a broken weapon.
I was amazed how long it worked. And
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
kept flailing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of power.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And eventually your robot like shakes itself apart, which it did, but it was on for a surprise. I mean, they got a few hits even with a
Yeah.
broken, it totally
That was
unbalanced
still pretty
bar.
impressive.
So it was pretty.
It was
impressive,
awesome
so.
to watch too.
It was, and like you said, Fred didn't care; he just kept YOLOing it, and
Yeah.
you never know. I mean, it could have got a lucky hit and disabled.
Yeah. It's-
Disabled.
Yeah, you gotta keep trying.
Donald. Yeah, you gotta keep trying.
So we have a fan question from Carlos220 on Instagram. That's Carlos with 2 A's, in case you were wondering.
Carlos.
Do you think Valkyrie would have a chance to win the tournament if they use a different blade against Lockjaw? Rest in pieces, Spirit of Boston.
Okay, well, looking from
Yeah,
now,
in hindsight,
yeah, sure.
in
Yeah.
hindsight, it's 2020.
Yeah.
But they did what everyone else has done with large horizontal spinners. If they have a disc version and they're going up against
Yeah.
a vertical spinner of any kind, pretty much across the board, they switch to a bar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think in general, if Valkyrie didn't have reliability issues or their bar breaking, it's just kind of these things that make their weapon stop being effective. Because this was the one match where their weapon kept working the whole time, right? But then their bar was broken.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
true.
I think they're as powerful as any of these veteran bots like Lockjaw. So
Oh, yeah.
definitely they
Mhm.
had a chance to win that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the next fight is Lucky versus Gigabyte.
That was a good one.
A
Yeah.
great one.
That was awesome.
Short but
More
sweet.
punching.
Super
I
punching.
love the punch.
The punch is great. So, what?
What?
So Gigabyte, they changed their post on the top.
Yep.
After the last one that broke in the first fight, had that bend in it, and it was a nice one-piece tube that was bent. That broke, so they opted for a shorter, heavier, angly one,
Welded one.
welded one, and that broke at the weld. Split right open.
Yeah,
Yep.
Gigabyte's just having problems with parts just breaking. And on their Facebook page, they actually say they wish they could have fabricated all the parts themselves because obviously they care enough to make sure everything's top quality.
But you can't.
But yeah.
You just can't.
With the time frame, and especially then, they had 2 robots worth of stuff to build.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make sense to make everything themselves.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so they have one robot and all of its spares in China, and another robot and all of its spares in LA. Like, you can't have. There's not enough time in 7 weeks to build, 4x of everything.
Right.
It's just
And
it's
there's zero overlap too.
right.
Batteries, transmitters, everything has
Tools.
to be totally halfway around the world. So
Yeah.
pretty crazy. But yeah, again, Lucky did a great job driving. Hats off to Curtis, waiting for the perfect timing to
Very
punch the underside of Gigabyte.
And keeping the front in the right direction.
Yes,
Yeah.
because that could have gone very differently had Gigabyte gotten around.
It got a
Lucky.
corner.
Yeah.
even. Just a little bit.
Just a nip, just a little nip, just a nip. So, fan question from Andrew Harvey. We saw some of you guys enjoying watching the fights, particularly the Lucky vs. Gigabyte fight. I'm curious, how often / how many of the fights did the builders get to watch as they happened during the whole taping? I'm guessing it heavily depended on how much repairs one needed to do. Cheers. Love the show.
Oh, he loves the show.
Thanks.
We
Yeah.
got to watch a lot of matches.
We did. There was a lot of downtime, like you said. It really depended on the team and how much repairs and how much prep work, and if you were in that session, etc., etc.
How bummed you were.
If you were out already or whatever, you
Yeah.
had no more spares. If you had to rebuild your entire robot, you weren't watching anything.
Yeah. But there were even times where I was working diligently, but I would hear the countdown buzzer over the over the speaker system, and I'd run over to watch the fight just because it was a good fight.
Yeah, so that builder's lounge that you saw where we were watching that was on one end of the warehouse, and then all the pits were directly in front of that, I guess.
Mhm.
So our Witch Doctor pit was actually exactly on the opposite end, so we had the longest run.
Yep.
Whenever you heard the crowd go wild, and we just sprint over there and see what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually closer for us to go through the sound stage and into where the real arena was.
Yeah.
But they didn't actually let us into this audience to watch, so we had to watch on one single TV on the side of the arena. But you feel it, you're there, you feel like the intensity.
It was good
So it's
because
different.
it meant they had full seats the whole time.
Yeah, it was sold out
It
the
was
whole time.
Yeah.
So that's good.
And of course, we love watching the matches because we're watching all their friends compete, and BattleBots live is awesome. But at the same time, you don't know who you're fighting next in this fight card format, so you also kind of want to see what everybody's doing and how everybody's winning. So
Call it market research.
yeah.
Yeah.
We try to watch as much as we could,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Andrew.
Yeah, it was a good one.
So now we're into the finals.
Finals match.
Lucky and Lockjaw. Now let's talk about Farouk's silly intro. Good.
I love the Farouk.
It's
I'm a
fine.
fan.
It's fine. Let's not go there. All right, fine.
I like
Don't
him.
touch it.
You know what? You gotta let them have the intros. It's what makes part of the show that, and
Yeah.
some of them are funny, some of them are less.
They're a little
Some of them
Cringy,
are the groaners.
Yeah, well,
Like,
yeah.
Some of them are great, but
Yeah.
some of them are less than great.
It's fine.
It's fine. Farouk does a great job, though.
Oh, he's
We're
awesome.
across the board.
He's hilarious.
Yeah, because he doesn't write them. So
No.
he gets a card and he reads it and goes, I have to say what? All right.
There were a couple where I saw him go, I'm not saying this.
Because he really gets into character too.
Oh, yeah.
He like builds the character for
Yeah, some of the voices.
sometimes
Oh,
whatever.
yeah. That was good. That was
he
good.
gets into them. So great fight. Oh, you guys talk.
Very evenly matched fight, right? Like when this match
Yeah.
started, I had no idea who was gonna win.
It's the my concern going in for Lucky was, were they low enough? Because that wedge is low, but like we've started to see, at least I've started to see, that pointy little things on the ground are always lower than the lowest wedge you can make.
Mhm.
But you
Just
know
due
what?
to inconsistency
Yeah.
on the floor and stuff. Yeah.
Lockjaw had these two forks, and then Lucky was coming in, and at the last moment they were kind of like just twitching it to try to get under like the side of their fork, and it worked quite a few times.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, I
I'm
thought
on to you. That's clever.
it was interesting that I think they went with the big wedge for a robot with the vertical spinner and long forks. But I don't know if maybe the other ones would have got damaged or whatever. But
Well, I don't know what you was against.
I would have used the little titanium jobbies he had against.
I think those have been
Gigabyte.
pretty damaged by now, though. I don't know if those
Yeah.
were
Yeah,
okay to use again.
I don't know. I don't know.
You use what you got.
Yeah, use what you got.
But did you notice how sometimes I noticed this halfway through the event. Sometimes the long fangs on Lockjaw are powered and like stay up, and sometimes they're floppy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no indication otherwise of how they work.
Sneaky.
So yeah, like this fight, when they're upside down, they flip back over, and it's great because their whole weapon system is on a swivel thing, so they can just keep driving. It's really well designed.
He knew he was going to be upside down for this match at least
Yeah,
once.
yeah.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Maybe
Yeah,
he
I
thinks
think
he's going to
he-
be getting flipped over.
This is
nice.
Donald we're talking about
Yeah.
here. And nothing
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a coincidence.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
That's
that's
true.
true.
That's a good point.
Everything
So-
is strategic.
Yeah, so Lucky, I mean, there was a few things stacked against Lucky in this fight. I think Lucky was a little bit slower than Lockjaw, so when he was trying to back up and get away, Lockjaw was able to stay on him. That was not in Lucky's favor. I think Lucky was having some drive issues, seemed like.
Yeah, they were having a
After
problem
a
with their
long day.
chain. It was a recurring problem that they've had throughout the whole tournament.
Well, that's what ultimately cost them the match. I think they lost drive on one side, so
yeah.
that was.
I think it was like 35 chain or something.
I think
Side.
I think
Or was it
25.
25?
I think it was like
Might have been
something
25 on the
ridiculous.
side.
Because
It
we
was
were
probably metric.
I remember
were
looking at that
35.
thing and like, really?
yeah over like a long run with no tensioner. It was like
It's a flipper. It's not supposed to push.
yeah, but I think his robot was like 200 pounds though. It's like really light.
Yeah, it was really underweight.
So you
So they
could
can have all the armor.
he could have 4-wheel drive though, like true dedicated 4-wheel drive.
Right.
Well, I'm sure he's got it figured out for season 4.
Yeah.
So anyway, Lockjaw wins and claims a spot in the top 16.
With a giant bolt.
What spot though? We don't know yet.
Yeah, because his ranking ultimately depends on his fights from the Despacito, the fights he had before the Despacito, and the fights that he's going to have after the Despacito.
Right. Exactly. Which
Right.
we were unsure about when we considered entering. We said, well, do you get the 16 spot? Because that would be like, hey, there's no way
You have to
in
fight
hell
twice.
you're getting in.
Yeah.
But if you win, you get like the lowest one, which sucks because then you fight the number 1 guy
Which
in
is
the
gonna
top
be
16,
Tombstone.
which is going to be Tombstone.
Or Bronco. I think Bronco could get
Okay,
him
it's
over.
going to be one of those
yeah,
five
not that
robots
that's
you
any
don't want to
better.
fight.
Yeah.
And then, but apparently that wasn't the case. I don't think. I think they're going to.
Well, I remember them saying, at least to us, when I asked that question, like, you could not fight those, but you're guaranteed to be like the lowest because you're effectively keeping your record there.
Yeah, I think
And
they
if
said
you
like.
went into the Despacito, chances are you had a bad record to start with,
Right.
so you're
Yeah.
going to be one of the worst records going in.
Right. Yeah, they said something along the lines of, well, it can't hurt your record. to
Right,
Fight,
yeah,
you know,
something,
you're like,
yeah.
oh, okay, well, yeah, that's.
Fine, we get the hint. Yeah.
Got it. All right, so that wraps it up
Yeah.
for the Desperado Tournament.
Yeah.
Lockjaw takes it. We'll have to keep watching and see where he winds up in the top 16. But we do have a few fan questions.
Yeah. Want to start with the first one? With Jeff Hedden from Facebook. Were you surprised by the team performances during the Despacito tournament?
Well, they had 4 robots that were more highly ranked, and then 4 robots that were more lower ranked.
Which I'm
And
sure was on purpose.
The finals kind of ended up being like the top
4.
the top
It
4
was
got
the
to like
top
the semifinals and finals. So it was kind of expected
Yeah.
the way it worked out. But I would say Kraken surprised me. I mean, they came really close to beating Lockjaw. I mean, they were the lowest seed, and Lockjaw's the number 1 seed. So
And it would have changed the entire.
yeah.
Obviously, Lockjaw won the Desperado, so that would have changed the entire outcome of the Desperado tournament.
Yeah, I was happy to see Valkyrie working
Yes.
more, at least. I wanted to work more, though.
I can't wait for
I wanna
season
see-
4 for Valkyrie. That's gonna be crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the robot is literally getting better every match. Like,
Yeah.
noticeably better every match.
Yeah. They've got some serious brain power over there, too, so they're going to figure it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So I'm gonna go to this question here from Rosach992.
Warshak?
Also, yes.
This is probably the one question that everybody's wondering, but nobody is asking. Does the Giant Bolt trophy for the Desperado Tournament screw into the Giant Nut trophy for BattleBots?
Oh, yeah.
That's a solid
Yes, it does.
Yeah. All the bolts fit all the nuts.
And we know
Just-
because Ray Billings has a screw for most destructive, and obviously a championship nut as well.
Yep.
So those two mate.
They do.
It's pretty great.
I think there's a picture of them made it together. somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
check the
Oh.
Hardcore Robotics Facebook page. I'm sure it's there.
All right. So next question, Max Owers. When the draw for the Despacito tournament was first announced, who did you guys and the other teams in the pits have your money on to win? That's a good question.
I thought Gigabyte was going to do better than it did.
I mean,
be honest.
yeah, like anything, like we said before, all of these fights are filmed in the same session, not the same day, same session. No, it was the same day.
It was the same day.
It wasn't. They were split around.
Half the fights
Alright.
in the morning
I retract my
session
statement.
and half the
Yeah, they were the same day though.
8
So
hours.
there was like a crazy amount of work that needed to be done in a short amount of time. So you could have like the best robot, like you said, Gigabyte I thought would potentially do very well, but Gigabyte also it hurts itself a lot. So it could have been, could go
Which
either
is,
way.
it's really the way a lot of the robots got into this Desperado tournament was the fact that they were hurting themselves a lot, right?
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
robots that kept breaking when they shouldn't have.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Valkyrie obviously suffered from some issues with chain, whatever, and that's all because of its own power and energy. But it didn't shake itself apart when it had a broken bar. So that's a testament to how well designed it is on the inside. So it's really just about resiliency, I think, and attrition and how fast the teams can turn it around. So,
I mean, I think, looking back, of course, I say Donald and Lockjaw.
well, because
But-
Donald has 2 robots, so we.
Well,
figured,
Donald has 3.
Well, yes,
He had a lot.
He had.
He had buttloads of Lockjaws all
Lockjaw
over.
on Lockjaw
He had
on Lockjaw.
new Lockjaws. He had old Lockjaws.
He
He
did.
probably had the other season 1 Lockjaw in
Yeah.
the
He just
truck.
brought everything.
He had everything.
Right. He obviously Donald, if his robot got completely wrecked, he could throw that one in the trash and bring out the new one that was all totally wired, ready to go. And like Kraken said before, he had 2 also. We had 1 and enough parts for another one, but we didn't have 2 fully assembled
Yeah.
robots.
Built. Yeah, same with us.
And-
Valkyrie had 2 sitting there.
And Valkyrie had 2.
Um,
So that definitely seems like the way to go.
Yeah. If you want to be competitive, you have to have 2 robots sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 and then some spares.
Especially for a day like this where you have 3 fights in a day, you have to be working on one while the other one's in line ready to go.
Right. Yeah, especially then
Just
you
how it is.
cool down and charge your batteries and whatever. You
Yeah. It's
literally don't have time to turn around the same robot.
Yeah, it's
Fast
just not practical.
All right, so that wraps it up for today.
No, we have more questions.
We were out of time.
All right, hold on. Let's see.
No.
Okay.
No, screw it. We're reading these questions.
Okay.
Don't read that loud.
Nick Razzledazzle says,
Come on.
"Do Will Bale's blue Hypershock shirts smell like him? If so, how do I get one to check?" The answer is yes. They do smell like him. I don't know. You just smell like blue Hypershock shirts.
Not today.
Yep.
Oh, I
Blue
do.
Hypershock
Whatever your
shirt?
laundry is. Tell
I
the
think
fans what your
he
laundry detergent
means
is.
like the new ones that you buy on the website.
Oh.
Like not the ones that he has already
You-
used.
When you
For,
get one,
for an extra charge, you can buy used Hypershock
for an
shirts.
extra charge, I'll tell you what detergent I use, and
Which
maybe we'll get them as a sponsor.
That's probably the best answer to that question.
That's
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best one. How can I get one to check? We're
Yeah.
trying to get them up on the store, so keep your eyes up.
So Sean McAllister asked a question about having 2 robots. We kind of answered that already. Ed Thurston says, "The tournament was a cool concept, but do you think the selection process is flawed? Given that Lockjaw team came in dominated with virtually no resistance, it seemed like a foregone conclusion that they'd run the table." Well, Ed Thurston, if that's your real name. Lockjaw's a great robot and a great team, and they were ready to. Donald said, "I'm ready to get the nut."
Yeah, but I definitely
False.
don't think it was stacked in a way to make Lockjaw win at all. I mean,
No.
Valkyrie could have won, Gigabyte could have won, one of the newer robots could have caused an upset. I mean,
Like we said, Kraken could
Yeah.
have ruined that whole thing first round. End of story.
so hindsight, the way it worked out,
Yeah. And look, like I think you mentioned it, they have 4 top tier robots and 4 lower tier robots. They wanted to have good fights. They had to work with who applied to the Desposito.
Yep, that's true.
And they wanted good fights. Ultimately, it's all about good fights, good television, and who's going to give good television? Some really, really good robots versus the underdog robots. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
bad robots, but the robots that aren't supposed to win.
Yeah. So it worked out for Lockjaw, but it could have easily worked out for somebody else instead.
Right. And one thing that I want to mention that I don't think we mentioned before is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the Desperado episode was
Despacito.
supposed to be, Despacito episode was supposed to be the episode before Shark Week break.
Yes.
But it actually wound up being the episode when we came back from Shark Week break.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
I think
were
they
supposed to-
came up with this like on the spot.
Oh, totally.
Like,
Yeah, they were
we
like,
got
hey,
to filming, and
all
they're like, hey,
builders,
so
come here. We're gonna have a meeting, and they're like, we're gonna do this thing, and if you want to be in it and guarantee yourself in the top 16, go talk to this person and sign up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it was pretty cool
It
because
was
they
cool.
were just kind of trying
On
stuff.
the fly, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was cool, and like you said, they're trying to be flexible, and they're trying to make a good TV show, and I think the Desperado Tournament was a really cool idea.
Yeah, I think I've gone back and forth about how I feel about where it should have been. Yeah, so it's supposed to be before the 2-week break.
Like a mid-season finale.
Right, like a mid-season finale. My concern would be the casual viewer, person who's not like totally invested in everything.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are watching tail of the tape with us three for 45 minutes.
For some reason.
Y'all weird.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
But thank you. You see 10 episodes and a finale,
Yeah, and you go, oh,
and you're
season's
all right,
over.
we're done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, no, actually 3 weeks later, it starts back up again. Like, that's confusing.
Yeah, it's true.
It was already
So-
confusing. We've gotten some questions like, hey, the episode.
This is season 4?
Yeah. So, yes, the season's still on.
Yeah.
If anybody hasn't caught on. So,
Yep, still quite a few more episodes.
lots of episodes.
Jeez.
So, that's pretty much
that's
it for a Desperado episode of Tale of the Tape.
Despacito.
I'll get it eventually.
So
So-
we'll be doing another one of these episodes for the next 5. So we'll do episodes, I guess would be 15. No.
Yeah.
It would be 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Yeah. Okay. For those.
Yeah. And then it starts at top 16, right? After that?
Soon
I
thereafter.
think the last
Ish.
3 episodes are going to be the top 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then
It
we'll
gets a little
It's something.
wavy.
So definitely subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying these videos to make sure you don't miss them, because we're kind of doing them as we can. So it's not a regular schedule yet, but we're working on it. And
Yeah, find all these robots on Facebook and Instagram. They're all there. They're on Twitter. If you have any more questions, ask away.
yeah, Valkyrie's social media has been really good. They're really adding a lot of details behind the scenes. So make
Yeah.
sure to follow them.
Lots
too.
of good photos.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, that's it. We'll see you next week or whenever.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey.
Butts of this.
Wow. You gotta drive Sarah Mullion crazy. Who's gonna talk about what the Desperado is?
Despacito.
Hey Matt, can you make some noise?